This week I've got a guest I've been very much looking forward to getting into the Zoom room. It's the fabulous, the wonderful, one of my heroes, Tim Wilde. So welcome, Tim.
Bless you, Toby. Thank you, my friend. It's great to be here, and thank you, thank you.
I'm kind of dying of a bit of man cold, man
I've
flu.
noticed the,
Yeah,
the pervasion of man flu you've been struck by it, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
How we men suffer when it
I
happens.
know it's not the end of the world, is it? Really? I mean, we could talk about all sorts of things like Ascension, Woodland Chronicles, but that's what you do. So I was
Yeah,
hoping today we could sort of get a little bit into the sort of what makes Tim um, tick, really.
yeah,
And without getting too personal, because your personal life is very important to you, of course.
yeah.
Um, I remember the first time I met you was at Carey's Manor for Jackie's
That's right.
Rights event.
Yeah,
And it's quite funny actually, because I came in, so I was actually watching your stuff that morning. And I
yeah.
said, I've just been watching you in the bath. And you said, I didn't have a bath, mate, I had a shower. So I thought that was a really good introduction. And I was looking at your Facebook, which kind of you
Yeah.
only kind of exist from 2016 onwards.
Mm.
But the first thing I remember seeing was your absolutely fabulously funny memes. And it's just so funny. And I do think satire and humor is you just can't they can't beat it basically. And the
No.
one that struck me was the reptilian overlord ones. They're
Oh,
trying to do the
bad
mathematical
reptile
code,
noises.
and they can't work out how their amazing things being destroyed by memes and stuff. So
That's it. Yeah, I mean, like, how can like a it's like a 10,000 year plan that's been put into operation, like over, like with all of these superstructures that have been put in place, social control and everything, and we're just annihilating it by laughing, basically. Which is one of it's you would have never have believed that we've got to where we have on the ascension pathway by using such simple techniques. I mean, if you look at what was going on in France in the last time Jupiter went into Aquarius, they were rolling out the guillotines, but at the moment, people are just using the power of their collective force and also the ability of saying no while centered in the heart. Now, if you're centered in the heart, you've got your sense of humor. And one of the things that most of us on the light path have got is a sense of humor. So I think that a lot of the stuff that we're experiencing at the moment can actually be memed and laughed at. So
exactly. Oh, you
yeah,
mentioned France. Actually, while I saw that thing, I was reading Voltaire,
yeah,
Candide. Oh, oh my god, he's so funny with his satire, and that's worth more than 1,000 guillotines, in my opinion, changing
it is. It
opinions.
is. Yeah,
So
it is.
cool. So you've obviously got a great sense of humor, and you've got a really nice family. You've got four children. I only thought you had two actually.
Yeah.
I know about Jake and Josh. I don't know the other ones, but
My stepson's 24, Luke.
ah,
My youngest is 12 years old, Lewis.
right, cool.
Quite a crew. Quite a crew.
Yeah, and they all live with you.
No, no, not
No,
all.
okay,
No,
cool.
no.
And you do a lot of fitness because everything in your Facebook just goes towards kickboxing. Generally, that's
That's
a
it.
big part of your life, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there's two sides of the coin that people can connect with. There's the practical ascension side, which is very much kind of geared towards my work, and then there's the personal Facebook profile where I always say, well, if you connect with me with a personal profile, you're probably just going to be reading memes, sort of thing. So there's and posts about kickboxing. So because those are the two things that usually go out on social media from that side. So yeah, kickboxing is a massive part of my life. I took it up in 2016. My son Jake, who's now 22. Um, when I started, he'd just got his brown belt, so I'm a fair way behind him.
All right. Okay.
So, yeah, he
Ah,
passed his brown belt the day I decided I was going to start kickboxing in 2016. I went and supported all of his gradings and gradually built myself up to the point where I need to be doing this because I'd spent 4 years on the ascension pathway, working very much in the capacity that I am now, but neglecting the physical. And during that period of time of neglecting the physical, I began to suffer, and I was just not where I needed to be. I needed an outlet. You can't, you know what the saying is about all work, no play. I needed some way to express, particularly that, you know, that physical masculine side of me. And watching my son do it on a regular basis, and I started very unfit and trained to where I am now. Now we both have second degree black belts. I've caught up with him, so it's good.
Good, cool. I know what my wife's thinking right now. She's thinking, why don't you follow Tim's example, Toby? I saw you go running with Jake, don't you?
I've had to give the running a bit of a sidestep at the
Right.
moment. It's again, you can have too much of a good thing, and exercise is in my list of things that I have to balance. So
Yeah.
everything in my particular part of the ascension world is about balance. It's about structure. It's about discipline.
Yeah.
And if you have too much of even what would be described as a good thing, too much running, too much exercise, too much kickboxing, too much focus upon that kind of thing, it's very easy to go into a state of overdrive or a state of over depletion. So I'm having to balance between doing too much now and focusing on the necessities of home life, the ascension pathway, and all of the rest of it. It's all been about balance. So running hasn't done my body a huge amount of good recently. I've had to step back from it.
Yeah. I never thought I'd actually say this, but it looks like it's an impossible thing, but it looks like your children might even be more hunkier than you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Jake is he's 6'2" and weighs 95 kilos. I mean,
Wow.
he's a big lad. He's a big lad. So
Do you think they're going to follow you at some point on what you're doing?
they already are.
Oh, they
They
are,
already
really?
are.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a great believer in children being children to a degree, and obviously, even when you're in your early 20s, you're still classified as a child mentally, aren't you? They have their own things to do, travel, work, go through the relationship phases and everything, but they're already on the pathway, and very much following in that footstep. And Josh, who's 17, is out in Portugal, and he's really on a mission at the moment. So it's really interesting seeing all of this, but it's not anything that I've ever. I mean, they obviously live around me. This is my life. It's my entire existence. So, but I've never said you have to be like this. This is the way that you are going to be. I've just simply been this way, and they've had the opportunity of either falling into that way of life or not. And so, having gone off and done various different things, they're now doing it themselves, and it's like, okay,
Was that weird?
Yeah,
Did you expect
it
it?
is a little bit,
Yeah.
because there's I'm seeing people at the moment make a lot more progress very quickly than I would have done 10 years ago, or anybody else tuning into this would have done, say, 20 years ago. People who take up the spiritual mantle at the moment seem to be going from 0 to 100 in a very short space of time. They're bypassing a lot of the kind of the long, boring, more mundane and drawn out processes that you and I say would have been through. And yeah, I'm saying, hang on a second. You might have a little bit, so you might have a few bits in the middle to fill in first, but it seems that what I'm seeing, those bits have already been filled in. You know, it's a faster process now. People are learning, picking up.
Is that going to carry on, or do you think it will slow
I think
down?
it's going to speed up, Toby,
I'll speed up,
personally.
bloody hell.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much more information that's now available in the fields.
Yeah.
People are downloading what they
Yeah.
need instantaneously. A lot of the karma and the more emotional and deep processes have already been cleared as we move into the second half of the shift from 3D to 5D. And I'm seeing people racing forwards, and this is good. You know, this is a sign of the times. This is what we've done all the hard work for. So all of a sudden, people have got the concepts that they need, and they're embodying them and embracing them, and they're shining their light and going out and doing their thing. Whereas me, I'm a little bit like, hold on a second, you've got stuff that you might need to go through first, but it's like, all right, okay, you've already gone through it. Brilliant.
Yeah.
On. It's
For the more older school, well, older term people, such as Diana, for example, they must be like, wow, I never expected this to happen. And look at
Well, we
this.
did
Yeah.
expect it to happen, but
We
it's
suppose you knew, yeah, but yeah,
yeah, we knew it was going to happen. We
practicality
predicted
of it.
it. Like both Diana and I and many other people have been saying, there's going to be a huge awakening, and that awakening really kicked off in 2020. Took a little bit of a stagger in 21, accelerated again in 2022, and this year we're already nearly 5 months into it, and there's people around us that are waking up who we would have met with that 2 year. And I was talking about this in my talk in Bournemouth on Tuesday night. So like we would have all had people around us, say work colleagues, friends, partners, maybe members of our family, that we would have said, "You're never going to wake up," and maybe we'd have been just a little bit judgmental about that. But all of a sudden, they're beginning to flourish, and it's a nice surprise, but it's something that maybe we would have mentally struck off a little bit. It's happening everywhere, literally everywhere. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this in other videos, but some of the most miserable people I know, or kind of news addicted people or whatever,
Yeah,
are saying things. I'm like, did you just say that? Really?
yeah. It's a good way to
It's
say
like, I
angry.
never thought I'd hear you say that before, but
No, no.
whatever. So yeah, that's
It's
good.
that's it. I mean, we are witness and we are privy now to exactly what we predicted energetically, but when we actually see it with our own eyes, it takes us aback.
Mm.
That's how fast it's moving.
Okay, so we said about sort of children like Jake, Josh, and your other two. Your parents were quite. You said before that they were quite sort of into all of this and used to witness them doing meditations where they lift off the floor and vibrate and stuff.
Yeah,
Tell us about that. That's really cool.
transcendental meditation goes way back,
Yeah.
and it was a big thing in the 60s and the 70s, particularly with the hippie generation. And my mother in particular was really into it. There were pictures of Maharishi Yogi up on the wall everywhere when I was a baby, books on the shelf, stacks of Carlos Castaneda books. I don't know whether you've ever read them, or if you haven't, I'd recommend it, because this guy, he goes out into the desert with a Yaqui Indian and he takes peyote, which is a hallucinogenic drug, and discovers dimensions under guidance from his Indian friend. And when I read these books, it explained to me perfectly about the dimensions, energy, how it operates, how things are non-physical above our physical frequency. And all of this was there. It was available in the library at my house when I was a kid. So it was all on the menu. And transcendental meditation, I used to, as from a kid's perception, I thought it was a bit weird myself. They'd all come, there were 2 times a day where I'd have to keep very quiet in the house for 40 minutes, morning and afternoon, where they went and meditated. When they got a little bit more advanced, when I was about 7 years old, they would actually, I can't remember what the exact name of the process is, but it's almost like an energy jump where they take off the floor and land again. And at the time, I was just like, yeah, they're just hopping around. We can all hop like frogs, can't we, sort of thing. But it was actually that's the explosion of the Kundalini energy coming through. And it's powerful. And so all of this was going on around me. So when I was having psychic experiences, when I was seeing and feeling and experiencing stuff, which was nothing short of scary as a kid, really, I wasn't shut down. I was never told, you're nuts, don't talk about that kind of thing. Or some people might have chosen to incarnate to religious parents where that sort of thing would be absolutely off the menu. I was guided in the right direction for the correct reasons, basically. I made those choices myself before I came down.
Good. Yeah, I was talking to Joe Hayes a couple of days ago, and he was involved in that initial sort of yogi, bringing the East to the West, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They did like conferences and stuff. And he was saying he used to have bad nightmares when he was kind of 8, and he worked out, because he had someone following him or something like that.
Okay.
It's like quite common, I think. He worked out if he laid down in his dream and rolled on the floor, he'd fall out of bed. So he used to wake himself up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not so good if he's doing a Himalayan trek on the top of a mountain. But
Yeah. No, you wouldn't want to be doing that in one of those kind of beds on the side, would you? Like the ones that hang over the side of the
yeah,
mountain.
yeah. So your upbringing was quite interesting. What kind of hobbies have you
Mm.
had like during your life? What sort of makes you
I,
tick
s-
other than all the other stuff? I know you're
my
very
life
busy.
was cycling for many
Yes,
years.
I was
I
going to
started
mention that.
cycling when I was 13 years old, and by the time I was 16, I was riding at national junior standard.
Right.
Um, Competing successfully against seniors by the time I hit 18, 19. It was, but cycling was my kickbox back then, what my kickboxing is now.
Yeah.
So it's been a big part of my life. I think sport physicality is a massive part of my growth, sort of thing. I need that outlet. I'm a very, very creative person, but I have almost like this kind of hyperactive drive energy that I have to expel the energy in some way, shape, or form, and that's best expressed in sport, I find.
Great. So it's kind of you're not kind of sit down do a puzzle type guy.
I
You have to get
can
up.
do, but
Yeah.
I will fidget.
Yeah.
Like, like I'm literally, unless I've got something to occupy me, I'm always moving, and to somewhat to my detriment, really.
We're very similar in terms of personality, I think. Because I'm the same.
Yeah.
I remember I once went fishing with my wife, and she came over to me after about half an hour. Something you have not moved for half an hour. I've never seen you do that in 15 years.
You're finally quiet. I've
Yeah, I
found
got
the thing that
how?
quieted you.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And I suppose the gardening that you used to do is kind of a combination of that and also being creative, isn't it? And it's the nurturing side of things. I heard quite an
100%.
interesting
Right.
story because you offered to do Diana's gardening, didn't you?
I did.
That's
I did. I
quite
met
well.
Diana Cooper in 2003 at a Bournemouth book signing. And it's such a clear memory because it's like it was yesterday. I'd been reading her books in the late 90s,
Yeah,
and she rapidly became, as well. There were two authors that I would absorb information from. One being Joshua David Stone, who many people have heard of, but was based and located in America, and Diana Cooper. Now, Diana Cooper, I just loved what she wrote. The old books, A Little Light on Angels, A Little Light on Spiritual Laws, Discover Atlantis. All of this information was the foundation of what I'm still working with now. So when I got the opportunity to go to her book signing at Waterstones in Bournemouth, back when Waterstones used to actually supply spiritual books, kind of thing, I waited until the end of the talk, hung around, and I was the last to get my book signed, and we just had a brief chat. And she said, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "I've just literally started my own gardening business." And she's like, "Oh, coincidentally enough, I'm looking for a gardener. Where do you live?" And I went, "I lived in Wimborne. She lived around the corner in Westmoor." So I was around there the next morning with my chainsaw. And there's a funny story to it because I turned up there, actually. I mean, obviously, I was a little bit apprehensive because I'm turning up at Diana Cooper's house. We only talked for a few minutes, and I was there on a working capacity. I didn't really know what I was doing, sort of thing. I had good gardening skills, but she wanted me to go and take the tops out of a load of hawthorn trees around the back of her garden. And so I walked down to the end of her garden, which was quite large. The whole garden was ringed with these kind of straggly, overhanging hawthorn trees. And I went down there and I got this very, very strong psychic message, and it was powerful. Don't cut the trees. And I'm like, okay, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to crank my chainsaw up and actually take the tops out of all of them. The message came through again, don't cut the trees. And so I was like, okay, all right, I've got to speak to her about this, because obviously I knew one of the few people on earth as a customer who I could relay that information to. And I was expecting to be packed off home again, like never to grace the garden ever again, sort of thing. And I said to her, "Look, your trees have just spoken to me, literally very clearly, and said, don't cut them. What do you make of this?" And she went, "Oh, let's go and tune in." So we both went down to the end of the garden. It turned out hawthorn, as you probably know, is it's a sacred plant or a tree. It has powerful protective properties and representation for being planted around buildings and sites, and she got the message as well. So it's brilliant. And from that point onwards, we really hit it off. I worked there once a week, became good friends with her, and
And now her
2014.
garden's totally overgrown now. Just go
now,
around there saying, sorry, I
now there's
can't,
just
grass
like
doesn't
barely
want to be
room to
cut.
move in the middle kind of thing.
Grass
Yeah.
doesn't want to cut. Let's just have a cup of tea instead. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I used to cut the grass and everything, but the
Yeah.
hawthorn trees got left. So yeah, that was the beginning of my journey with Diana.
Oh, brilliant. That's cool. You've written 2 books. They're Hay House ones, aren't they? I think.
They are Hay House.
Yeah.
The first one is Archangel Guide to Ascension. The second one is Archangel Guide to Enlightenment and Mastery. So they were written and released in 2014 and 2015.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So, in terms of your work, you're doing the Woodland Chronicles, which I
Yeah.
quite often watch. That's quite good. And you've made that a lot more practical by the looks of things, so people can understand a bit more about the 3D
Yeah.
D type stuff, because it can be quite hard to grasp a lot of the more sort of metaphysical stuff, I think.
The more technical
Anyway.
concepts of it. Yeah. I mean, all of that started. I mean, I've been doing random kind of intermittent video blogs for years. Like you say, I only kind of came on the Facebook radar in 2016. I was operating before that, but in a much smaller capacity. In fact, I think I had a completely different Facebook page to then altogether. So it's the beginning of 2020 that the form of the Woodland Chronicles that you see it now began. And it was because I was seeing what was going on in this whole kind of craziness of the lockdown process. And I broke the energy down for people and began speaking every Monday and every Friday about what's going on in this world. And it's turned into the Woodland Chronicles, because I've been doing it for 3 years now. It's quite a long time.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really nice, especially as you do sit in the wood and you're dedicated, you're there, and it must be a bit difficult in the winter sometimes. It's freezing cold.
I actually prefer the winter, Toby,
Oh,
because
okay.
in summer I get eaten by midges.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I'm going to finish up before I lose my voice.
oh yes.
What's the wisest thing anyone's ever said to you that really rings true throughout the whole of your life?
Sorry, can you run that by me again?